Welcome to this video about the Book of Secrets, the first 5 techniques. In my last video, the introduction to the Book of Secrets by Osho, I discussed what the Book of Secrets was all about and how it was Osho's commentary on the Indian sutras, whereby the Hindu god Shiva is answering the questions that are asked to him by his consort Devi. And so in the last video, I talked about the very first question that Devi asked Shiva, and today I'm going to begin with Shiva's reply. And Shiva's reply to Devi's first question is, Radiant One, this experience may dawn between 2 breaths. After breath comes in, and just before turning up, the beneficence. So Osho begins his commentary on this by stating that all of Shiva's techniques are meant to turn the mind from the future or the past to the present. He acknowledges that this is difficult because intellectually our minds are always seeking, and if we try to understand from this point of view, it will become a puzzle. By doing a technique, however, the mind is turned inward and away from future or past. It moves into the present. Osho points out that breath and life are synonymous, because without breathing, we could not live. This is why in India it is referred to as prana, the life force. Osho comments that your life is your breath, and it is also a bridge between you and your body. While yoga systematizes breathing in order to bring balance to the body and improve health, Tantra is not concerned with breath for that reason, but as a technique to turn inward. We rarely think about the process of breathing and do not notice that there are actually points or doors that are very subtle that are part of this process. By accessing these points and becoming aware of them, we are drawn into a different state of consciousness. Technique number 1 is to watch the gap between 2 breaths. This means when your breath comes in, observe that for a tiny fraction of time, there's no breathing at all before the breath turns up and turns outward again. If we can observe this tiny gap, we will notice that during that time when breath pauses, we are not in this world. In effect, we are dead. Osho explains that each outgoing breath is a death, and each new breath is a rebirth. This technique is very simple. When the breath touches your nostrils, feel it there. Then let it move in. Move with the breath fully consciously. When you are going down, down, down with the breath, do not miss the breath. Do not go ahead and do not follow behind. Just go with it. Remember this. Do not go ahead. Do not follow it like a shadow. Be simultaneous with it. In this way, breath and consciousness become one. This technique has become known as a Buddhist technique because this is a method through which Buddha achieved enlightenment. Over centuries of time, many people in Asia tried this technique and realized the immense benefits that can be achieved through its practice. Technique number 2 is to watch the turning point between 2 breaths. As breath turns from down to up, and again as breath curves from up to down. Through both these turns, realize. Here, Osho notes that there's only a slight difference between this and the first technique. The important thing to remember about this technique is that the emphasis is now not on the gap, but on the turning. The outgoing and ingoing breath make a circle. There are not 2 parallel lines. Breath going in is half of the circle, and breath going out is the other half. Osho gives the analogy of shifting gears in an automobile. Every time you change a gear, you have to pass through neutral, which is not a gear at all. This neutral gear is the turning point. Therefore, this is the point in the circle of breathing we need to become aware of and watch. Technique number 3 is to watch the fusion point of 2 breaths. This is stated by Shiva as, whenever in-breath and out-breath fuse, at this instant touch the energy-less, energy-filled center. This technique is to move you into your center, because as Osho explains, the breath is static. When it is moving out or coming in, it is a dynamic process, but there is a point when the breath is neither, and that is what he describes as the fusion point. This fusion point is your center. Your center is where your breath goes when it comes into your body, and it moves out of that same place when you breathe out. Osho tells us that Taoist and Zen mystics say that the center of the human body is not the head, but the navel. The navel is where your personal power comes from. If you have a strong navel center, or hara, you have a strong will and can never be defeated. Osho says that when you are at your center, you are always total as opposed to fragmentary, and that most people fear being total, so they breathe shallowly or at a minimum level instead of a maximum level. That is why the goal of technique number 3 is to take deep, slow breaths and touch your center instead of breathing from the chest. Technique number 4 is to be aware when the breathing stops. In the words of Shiva, when breath is all out and stopped of itself, or all in and stopped, in such universal pause, one's small self vanishes. This is difficult only for the impure. What then does Shiva mean by the term impure? The definition of this term has a different meaning according to Tantra, because Tantra makes no differential between good and bad. Tantra says that to divide is impure and to live in non-division is purity. So when Shiva uses the term impure, he means undifferentiated innocence. Osho explains that the small self is something that we create only to live in the world and conduct day-to-day business. It is comprised of those things such as our name, our reputation, our bank account, and these do not really make up who we are. He says that we forget this small self in an instant, such as in a time of an emergency, and at a time like this, breathing stops, everything stops, and there is a pause. During a time like this, the small self vanishes. If we can remain aware in such a moment, we can reach a communion with our higher self, our supreme self. While any sudden expected event creates this pause for those who are impure, Osho says that for the pure, the pause is always there. By pure, he means you are not desiring or seeking anything. This he describes as innocently pure. Many times for pure minds, breathing stops. Technique number 5 is focus your attention on the third eye. In the sutras, Shiva says, attention between the eyebrows, let mind be before thought. Let form fill with breath essence to the top of the head, and there shower as light. This was the technique that was given to Pythagoras in Egypt, although the technique originated in India. Osho says Pythagoras took this technique to Greece, where he became the father of mysticism in the West. The third eye exists between the 2 eyes, but it does not function unless it is stimulated to open. The goal of the 5th technique is to do just this. Osho gives the following instructions for accomplishing this. Close your eyes, then focus both of your eyes just in the middle of the 2 eyebrows. Focus just in the middle, with closed eyes, as if you were looking with your two eyes. Give total attention to it. This will have the effect of stimulating the pineal gland, or what the Tibetans call the third eye, and in Tantra is called the eye of the Shiva. By focusing on the area between the eyebrows, you direct all of your attention there, and the gland helps you to do so because it has magnetic properties, according to Osho. When you do this, you will become the witness to your thoughts instead of being identified with them. This fifth technique is the one that teaches you to become the witness. When you do this, you are able to look at your thoughts and encounter them. What will follow from this will be that you will feel the subtle, delicate vibration of breathing, not just air, but what is the key content of air, prana, or life force. This will increase your vitality because you can imagine that your head is completely filled with it all the way to the crown chakra, which is the highest psychic center. There, at this center, is where the prana essence will shower you with light. This is what it means to experience inner rebirth. So that does it for the first 5 techniques covered by Osho in his Book of Secrets. Remember, Osho teaches that we do not need to practice all of the 112 methods that Shiva gives us. We only need to find one or a few that work for us and then do them. To quote from chapter 5, "No knowledge is knowledge unless it is lived and experienced." Namaste until next time.